she tells us we're okay, we'll start. Good evening and welcome to the Planning Board meeting for the Town of Norfolk on June 27th, 2018. Please be aware that the proceedings will be video and audio taped for the record per Massachusetts general law. The first item on our agenda this evening is Fern Ridge Estates. We have an open space special permit modification and request for bond reduction, and the gentleman is here, so.
Yes,
Lou?
good evening, Lou Petrozzi for Wall Street Development Corp. We're here as part of a continued public hearing for a minor modification to the special permit that was issued for Fern Ridge open space subdivision. And in a way, we're here to ratify a vote that was taken by the board back in December that granted a minor modification to take a small portion of the open space, as you see shaded here in purple. It's approximately 32,512 square feet. Originally, we had made a proposal. This parcel was quite a bit larger. It was about 45,000 square feet and extended to the neighbor's property line. We spent quite a bit of time over the last few months to walk certain aspects of that area and came up with a plan that would mitigate some of the concerns that the homeowner had relative to the aesthetics or the visual impact of carving this little piece out. And we've had a site walk with Rich McCarthy and the homeowners. And so this is what we have come up with as a compromise, I guess, as to the open space that we'd like to have carved out and conveyed to the homeowner who lives at lot 9A. And so that's essentially where we stand at this point.
Lou, as you know, there's a prior issue that we need to deal with.
Yes.
And that is the payment that you owe the town.
Yes.
And can you describe where you stand with that issue?
I have a check in my pocket.
And doesn't help us. It helps us if you put it on the table.
I think we were relying on the previous vote that it was kind of a conditional type of approval that was granted before, whereas the modification or the minor modification was conditioned upon payment of the $26,000. So, from my estimation, is if the board places that condition on the modification, then the modification doesn't take effect unless the money is paid. So, quite honestly, we're prepared to pay the money. We just want to make sure that we have what we proposed.
Let's see. We have been advised by town council that we cannot connect the payment of the money which is owed to the town with our vote on the proposed compromise here in any way. So it's a chicken and egg issue.
Yes, it is.
And in this case, the chicken is the check which you've owed to the town for months, and the town needs to have that money. If we can have that money paid this evening, I believe we would be within our legal rights to accept the money and postpone the vote for another meeting so that we can indeed separate the two issues.
Yep.
And then vote on your proposal.
Yeah. I don't
So
think.
that's what I propose we do.
Yeah. No, I'm not gonna do that because the original special permit had that same condition in the special permit. So I really don't understand where the board's already done it once, and now they're trying to not do it this time for some reason.
Lou, you've owed the money for months. Please, pay the money and let's
Yeah.
get this issue
Just one-
behind us.
Mr. Chairman, one other point, I just noticed this, that part of this special permit modification is also to lower the open space funding of 2,000 per lot, which is in our regulations, to 1,000 per lot. So this special permit has a dual purpose, to modify the piece of open space land and also to reduce the open space fee from 2,000 to 1,000. Am I correct?
That's correct.
I hadn't noticed that before.
Well, yeah,
Well, that was the original proposal. We did have a discussion about that, and the board, when we had the original vote back in December, talked about it staying at the $2,000 per lot. So I have a certified check for the $2,000 per lot. And from my understanding, my attorney had a conversation with town council last night, I think, and didn't seem to find an objection to the conditional approval that we're talking about tonight. So just trying to approach this in a fair manner. This was when it was brought to my attention that the money hadn't been paid, and this is something that goes back, probably almost 10 years now, that I made a proposal to the administration on how to resolve it amicably. And this was the methodology that we came up with to address this particular situation. So we've had these discussions since last October, and you're right, it's the chicken and egg. And there's, from a practical standpoint, we have a proposal that the board voted on back in December, and there seems to be, it's a gray area as to whether or not we even need this public
Well,
hearing.
the
But
contingency on that proposal was that, I believe it was before we realized it needed a special permit, the proposal was to endorse the MyLars contingent on receiving in advance the $2,000 per lot open space fee.
Well,
It
that's-
basically altered that contract by changing the price from 2,000 to 1,000.
Now, that's not exactly what was voted. I have the votes right here if you're interested in looking at them.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Board actually took two votes, one in October,
Get to that.
6 copies, so.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So if you, at the top of page 3 is where it really starts.
Notice the fourth sentence?
Which is the fourth sentence.
Mr. Petrosi said he should have the open space maintenance funds to the town around the first week of January.
That's correct. It was conditioned upon, I came into the office to pick up the endorsed plan, and I requested at that time that the modification document, we needed something for recording purposes at the registry to have that prepared and also recorded at the town clerk's office. And at that time, we were told everything was on hold for some reason. So we've had the money in escrow for quite some time.
We also found out that we couldn't amend a special permit
Right.
without the filing by town council. So basically, that vote was null and void because we never had a public hearing with a formal application to amend the special permit.
Well, there seems to be, I'm not a lawyer and I'm not a judge, but I think there's a significant amount of, on both sides to substantiate the fact whether or not it is a valid vote or not. I'm trying not to go there because I think we're all on the same page. We all want the same thing. I'm trying to pay you some money, and all we want is what we propose, which is an endorsed plan and a amended decision to the special permit. It doesn't seem to me to be that big of a deal, so, it's up to the board. You know, we've spent quite a bit of time on it. You're not gonna break my heart if you don't approve it, or you don't ratify it. I'll discuss it with my attorney to see whether or not we want to appeal it, if you deny it. So, it's, I think, you could take two separate votes, I mean, if you wanted to, but,
Yeah, my proposal stands, which is,
yeah.
we will separate the vote on the amended layout there from the receipt of the check. If you give us the check tonight, the check tonight, we will
Yeah,
postpone this until next meeting and then vote on your proposal here.
no, I just can't do
The
that. It's not-
context of that conversation on tape is that it was made quite clearly that the contingency, even though the special permit was not formally filed and held, the contingency always was the funds would be received and cleared in advance before any plans were endorsed.
I think the intent was,
That was what you
hand me-
said, and that
no.
was the intent.
yeah, the intent was, you hand me the plan, I hand you the check. It's sort
No,
of,
that was never the intent,
Okay.
because we talked
Sure.
about funds being cleared before the things were endorsed. And
I-
you talked about
I
a
don't-
certified check.
I don't want to argue,
You have to argue.
okay? Listen.
Just tell you what happened at the meeting.
Whatever happened, happened.
Right.
We were under the impression that we would bring the funds, we would get endorsed plan and a modification to the special permit. If the board just doesn't want to do that, then I can't help you. If, we're doing what we can do. And it's not that we don't want to pay, but it's just the question of,
Well, you are in receipt of a demand letter from the town on the funds, correct?
I don't remember receiving that.
Right,
but
Rich?
What does it say?
Rich, have you got a copy? I've got a copy if you don't.
You can put it up on the computer.
You can? Okay, do it. Somewhere here I had a copy. Thought I had a copy. That's the wrong one. Here it is. Here. May 11th, yeah, that's the one.
Yeah, I recall receiving that. I think there's an intention for us to pay the amount of money, but I think,
Well, as it says on the bottom here, the town planning board is constrained from the issuance of any requested permits until the $26,000 lot release fees are paid to the town. So that's really where we are. And
well, I don't know who wrote that letter, and I don't know where your advice came from. I haven't seen an opinion from town council, but listen, if the board wants to go this route, we'll go this route. I mean, I have a check. All you have to do is vote it, endorse the plan, and I'll give you the check.
How much is the check for, Lou?
It's $26,000.
Then we have a problem with the purpose of the special permit, because it's mentioned 1,000 per lot rather than 2.
we can,
No, that was a request, so. the
Well,
bo-
no, that's actually.
That isn't what the board voted, though.
I believe this is what part of the vote's gonna be on,
Well.
from what I see.
I mean, we're beating up something that we don't need to spend all this time about, so
Reading.
it's up to the board. You folks want to approve it, I'll give you the check, and I'll take the endorsed plan with me tonight, and I'll wait for Betsy to prepare a recordable decision.
We can't do that, Lou.
Okay.
Pay the money first, and then we'll
Yeah,
vote next
yeah.
meeting. That's
Then,
where we're at.
then I just request you to close the hearing, please, then we're not
Well-
interested in doing that.
have
We,
a
if we
butters
close the
here.
hearing, we're restrained in the number of days we have to vote, so.
It's up to you, I mean,
Leave the audience, I think, too.
Yeah.
nothing's gonna change. My
understand.
position is not gonna change relative to payment of the funds, so we had an arrangement, we have a vote, and the board is not honoring its previous vote, so if they wanna go that route, go right ahead. We know what our rights are, and if you think that your town council has given you proper advice and you think that it's worth the semantics, then fine, stick by your guns. I mean, I don't care.
We will. But before we pass on this issue, is there anyone in the audience who would like to comment on the proceedings that we've just discussed? Sir, take a microphone, please, identify yourself. There's one there.
Thank you. Hi, John Gavin.
Hi, John.
I live at 21 Chickatabit. It abuts, it backs up, so I'm in a butter.
Which one of those lots, could you point to which one?
No, he lives in this.
This one over that?
Yep,
Okay, yep.
that one. So yeah, we did discuss a compromise. I think I don't know that we got to an agreement. I think we tried. I don't know that it was really a compromise, though. I think it ended with Lou kind of dictating the terms and telling me how things were going to play out here and in court, wherever. And I took that to my attorneys and got some advice. And I found that was not entirely accurate. So I'm not really comfortable agreeing to this compromise. I do have a number of concerns that we talk here about changing the dollar amount, changing the land, the open space requirement. But when I look through the final decision, the definitive plan decision, I think it clearly states that these are all conditions. He had to give over $2,000 for every lot as it was released. He had to give over the open space before getting a single lot. None of this happened, so to me, it's a non-compliant development for 8 years, and I think there's something we can do about it. And I think it says clearly in the decision that if you needed to, and if he's threatening to go to court and do all this, you have it within your rights to, at his expense, to go get these things from him. So I'm struggling with why we'd consider making this change at the expense of the residents and myself as an abutter, who, again, looked at this 3 years ago when he bought his house, and based my decision to put in an offer and purchase my home based on this information. And I have written confirmation from the town that this exact parcel was open space. So I struggle with how we can do that and tell residents that the board has their best interest at heart if we're making that kind of change at this stage, 8 years later, when all of it was supposed to happen.
Thank you for your comment. Anyone else?
I do have my neighbor, but he couldn't make it, but he has similar feelings.
Okay. I think we've reached the end of the discussion on this topic, unless you have anything else to add, Lou.
No, I'll just say that that there's over 5 acres of excess open space that we provided to the town. We certainly could amend further and take that 5 acres back, and we could do a lot of things, but I'm just trying to make things whole. Town bargained for the $26,000. We're asking for the town to allow us an opportunity to convey some additional land to a homeowner that abuts at the end of the cul-de-sac.
The neighbor is correct in the respect that this land, open space was supposed to be deeded to the town before the first lot was released.
So
That was his responsibility.
I understand,
Listen.
which makes it a little bit,
I can't, I can't be responsible for the town's board, the planning board, releasing the lots or not requiring the payment of the funds at the time. That's not my responsibility to do that. It has been, the town didn't request the money, and they didn't ask for the open space, so,
So you're saying if somebody forgets to send you a bill, you don't know the bill,
could be.
for like the
Yeah,
electric company?
well, yeah, I think so. That could be
All right.
that way. 'Cause-
I don't think that plays, but I understand your point of view, but I don't think
so,
it plays.
well, maybe it doesn't, but I'm not making an excuse for it. I'm just saying we're here to try and make that a remedy, and you're making nothing but roadblocks. So if that's the way you want to handle it, we can handle it that way.
Chicken and egg.
Right, so.
Pay the money, then we'll vote. Next meeting.
No, I'd like to have the hearing closed, and you can make your decision whenever you make it, and we'll decide what the appropriate course of action is after that. We're not coming back here to continue to have this chicken and egg argument. It's not appropriate. The planning board approved the modification, and now you're not ratifying it because of some legal opinion that you might need a public hearing. So if you think that that is a legitimate basis for not approving it tonight, then, that's the board's decision.
Motion to close the public hearing for special permit number 201805.
I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, we've closed the public hearing. Next item on our agenda is 7 Hill Street, site plan and special permit continued from 5/23.
Take a vote on that?
Say again?
Bond reduction?
You're correct. Excuse me, gentlemen, there's another item. Rich, are we prepared to talk
So
about that?
we just received 6:55 an email from Bob McGee apologizing he had family matters, so he wasn't in the office today. However, the email does state, and Betsy can pull it up because it was to both of us, that at this time his recommendation was just to release the money on the trees that are being held.
What's the dollar amount?
I think it's,
What's the total bond amount outstanding, Betsy?
total,
The total existing.
the total bond is $105,899. And the trees are $18,808. And then
What's the
Doesn't it seem a
contingent, what's the
little odd that we-
contingency on it?
contingency is $18,572.
No, is it 50? You give me the amount with the contingency?
The line item for the trees is $18,800. And then the total amount of contingency on the bond is $18,572.
What's that
And the
percentage?
percentage contingency is 15%?
15%.
Okay, so the 18,808, all right,
Yeah,
let's-
so-
Why would we vote
2820.
to release money on a development where
because
there's,
it's-
there's funds owed to the town?
We haven't voted anything yet.
Well, where that's being proposed. I mean,
that
why are we
makes-
even considering it?
That'll be up when you talk about the vote. So the total amount of the trees is 21,620 with the contingency lowered.
So under the subdivision control law, the applicant posts surety for completion of the work that's required as part of the subdivision. And as that work is completed, they're entitled to come back and request release of the money for the work completed. So that's what Mr. Petrozzi's doing in this particular case, so.
If town council has advised us that we cannot connect the payment of the subdivision fees
I believe that's true.
with
Right.
the other issue, are we able to do that same, are we not able to do the same thing in this case?
I believe that we have been
Yeah, there's a,
counseled that that is the correct position. We cannot connect them. Is that not true, Rich?
no, that's correct. You can't, in this particular case, this is surety for the roadway completion, not a fee
Apples and
associated.
oranges. So, that's Mr. McKee's recommendation.
Well, this request has been in the town's possession since the early part of December of 2017. The town has not released a penny from the bond. There are several items on here that are, should not be held back. We adjusted the structures, we cleaned the catch basins, flushed the system, we cleaned out curb stops, loam and seed, tree planting, bounds, pavement.
Just this.
It seems a bit disingenuous to not release the monies that we've requested. The work has been completed.
Almost like not paying the fees for the subdivision when they were due.
No, I don't think it's completely unrelated.
Well, I will entertain a motion to release $21,620 from the bond.
I'll make
this
a
year.
motion to reduce the bond for Fern Ridge from $105,899 to $84,279, which is a deduction of $18,800 for the trees and lowering the contingency by $2,820.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Have a good
When do you think we can come back for the rest of the money?
Next month.
Next month?
Yep.
Okay. Betsy, would you put me on the agenda for next month, please? Thank you.
And in between, we certainly hope that we will see a check for $26,000.
If you want to endorse the plan and approve the modification, I'll have the check here the next day.
Have a good evening. Next item on the agenda is 7 Hill Street. Can we just leave it alone? Leave it alone for next month.
I just ask that you don't take this out on me.
No guarantees.
Good evening,
Good
Jamie
evening,
Bissonette, Zenith Consulting Engineers for the record. I'm not sure that, and if the board wants, we can go over the plan again. I'm not sure there was anything substantially changed from our last meeting. I think tonight we were probably more aimed at dealing with the decision and some other items that may have come up. Am I correct in that thought process?
Yeah, we have the Bader's last wrap-up letter. It looks like all the things that you folks had in limbo are all agreed upon. Is that your last?
Well, there's a couple of things.
There's a
that
couple
we
of
need to-
things. Couple
things
couple of
left?
things,
Yep,
yeah.
and to be honest with you, I don't think that we take issue with hardly anything. We have no problem doing the secondary roadway standard. We thought about it, talked about it. In this application, it doesn't seem unreasonable. We went through the waivers for sections 4 and 5 and didn't see anything that necessarily stuck out that weren't in the ones that you had granted, even though I think all the other ones pretty much are, not all of them, 80% of them are not applicable.
Right.
Maybe 90%.
Do you have Beta's letter in front of you? Is that what you're holding?
This is actually a draft decision.
Okay, well, let's deal
You
with
want to go through
Beta's
Beta's
letter
letter? I have that here too.
for a second. Can you go to page 2 and look at the first item there, W1?
Yes, sir. Yes.
I want to make sure that Rich and the board are comfortable with Beta's recommendation.
I don't think any of us do.
Anybody got a copy of,
You should,
this came out,
Decision?
No.
Beta
The
letter.
email today, which is unfortunate, but it did. We'll talk about that later.
What is on the K2 form, Phil?
So there's a K2 form that we've been using for all the subdivision standards, and also the K2 form, which is just retitled site plan, but it had all the same things on it. We've been working at, you know, when these projects come up, customizing them based
Yeah.
on, you know, for instance, we're not watching the pavement go down, we're not, you know, there's a number of things that we're mostly concerned with the underground utilities, and fundamentally, the project is constructed, you know, at the end, looks like what was constructed.
Yeah.
So basically, we observe all the utilities as they go in, and with some town officials, you know, for instance, the water department looks at the water, you know, if there's sewer, then or septic, then the Board of Health addresses those.
I didn't realize you were coming.
So-
Sure, Mike, that would be good. Thank
Okay.
you.
So it's modified down. We do, I think the one request that we asked to be added to the decision was that we typically ask for an interim or a draft as-built before they do the paving, so we can just review this utilities before they do the paving. And then we come back at the end, once they've got everything built, and review the as-built, final as-built. So.
But you're comfortable with that?
Yeah, yes, I mean, I think what Phil said makes sense, and we have adapted, and this actually is kind of an adaptation of what was done for Luca with a couple of Luca Plaza, which is one a few years ago, and what we have done more recently. So we've cut back. Now, what I like to do is probably take that form and revise it, and then have the board adopt it, so then we don't have to get into a repetitive situation where applicants have to actually request a waiver.
For purposes of tonight's meeting, so they.
For purposes for tonight means,
What items aside utilities do you?
so what we actually, I did revise the decision, which you do have.
The as-built is required anyway, so that's,
Yeah,
you just want
yeah.
it before it's
Yeah.
paved rather than after.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
You have two, really, the interim and then the final as-built. It's really, more or less what's being waived, being waived is the level of inspections, not, which would be associated with a subdivision for the commercial,
Right.
the site plan. So in condition 41, in the draft decision that we have, I did incorporate what Phil's is recommending. Be in there was an inspection of the erosion control. And Phil, actually, you could look at it here while we're looking at it. And then I inserted the interim as-built plan shall be provided prior to paving. So those are the only two additions that we made between the draft that I had sent to the board previously and between what Phil had just said
Yeah.
and was in an email earlier today. And those all are reasonable, I think, from my perspective, so.
Are they reasonable from your perspective? Okay. Next question I have is W4 there. I'd like the board to get a little explanation of what the water quality unit that you're proposing, how it would be the equivalent of the oil-water separator.
Do you want me to address this?
Yeah.
I think it's actually a superior unit. It gets superior TSS removal. It's designed to achieve at least 80% TSS removal. Oil water separators does separate out solids and gases. This does that and takes out a higher level of the suspended solids. So this one unit actually, you can put it in a catch basin or a manhole structure itself, but it's utilized in critical areas. It's a what they would refer to as a BMP. It's a
Where's
superior
it
unit.
located on the plan?
Can you switch to the next sheet for me, Betsy? So you'll see that we actually, anywhere that we have, We have them in the manhole structures for the most part. I believe we have one right here in this DMH manhole here. And so what's happening is the stormwater, as it gets into the deep sump catch basins, it receives its first set of treatment, comes down to this manhole, receives treatment, and then comes to our infiltration system.
All right, thank you, and you're comfortable there, right?
Yep.
Okay. All right, going to page 10 here. Can you describe where we have finally ended up with landscaping? The issue here in the Beta proposes is the proposed buildings are taller than 13 feet, and Beta recommends additional screening to mitigate the visual impact to the abutter.
Yeah, we've looked at that as well.
Yep.
I don't know, so can you flip to the next sheet, Betsy? I think it's sheet 5. All right, so on the east, which is the right side,
Yep.
which would abut 9 Hill Street, I think that's where the impact that Phil was referencing. And,
Yeah, that's the
and
only resident along.
Yeah.
yeah, and so in a general look at it, you go, well, we have vegetation all along that side, but a closer look, you realize we're proposing rhododendrons and inkberries.
Which are
And
pretty long,
I
right?
believe Phil to be correct. I think we should swap that out for something that's taller, probably an evergreen that's gonna grow into a denser
Mm-hmm.
type of vegetation. So we were thinking, again, Leland cypress, possibly with some rhododendrons or just Leland cypress alone. They're not gonna have the bloom and the flower that the rhodos will, but it'll provide a much better screenage.
Okay, so you're going to adjust the landscape plan to
We-
demonstrate.
We'll change that for the next meeting,
Yep.
absolutely.
I think we covered the last question I have, but it's the last item here, U2 on page 11, which says, Beta recommends a condition be included that requires as-built plans include private utilities prior to issuance of certificate of occupancy.
Yeah, I think if
we-
they include it right on the as-built.
Now, are we gonna be phasing at all? So I guess we'd like to keep open or have some discussion about the possibility of phasing before everything's 100% complete with an as-built. And I'm not sure exactly how we would want to approach it. We have numerous buildings going in. I know the first building's gonna be completed far before the last. It would be my anticipation. And us putting down finished coat of asphalt with rims and manhole structures to grade is probably gonna happen at the very end, because we wanna keep it pristine. Maybe we can reword that so it references, prior to the occupancy of the last building.
So once this project is approved, you're gonna go to the utility companies and you're gonna get a plan for that.
Correct.
So maybe if it just provide that plan as a copy to the board as well.
Oh, absolutely. That's not a problem.
That would kind of, so, you know,
That would remedy the situation?
I think, yeah.
Okay. All right. Because this references as-built plans for the private utilities, but if design plans and then, again, we don't mind submitting the final as-built plans. We just don't want it to hold up occupation of all of our units.
I think that's reasonable, all right.
Okay.
Phil, do you have any other items that are in your letter that?
Wouldn't we want to understand what kind of phasing we're talking about in that
Well,
scenario? though?
it's not
And
tr-
if it's 10 years between the first unit and the last unit, then.
No, that's not the anticipation. We'd like to go from one building to the next building, so it'd be
We document the anticipation?
how long do you think it will take to go through the entire thing? A year? 2 years? Start to finish, we would anticipate about 2 years.
I think we should add that to the language.
We should.
I also have a question as I read here. I didn't get a chance to read it before the meeting, but, sorry, Walter, I don't know if you were done.
I'm done on this, on the Beta letter, and Phil, I think, is set too.
All right, but in W5 and the letter that has the Ws in it, it says applicant seeks a waiver for requirement from showing site lighting indicating that standard residential fixtures in accordance with current state and local safety codes will be used. So we're saying that they don't have to meet state and local safety codes according to lighting? It seems kind of drastic. Unless I'm reading it wrong.
No, you're reading it right. I don't think that's their intent, but
Is there a state code for lighting on a project this size?
I don't believe there is.
Whose levy does that work?
we had, huh?
So they have-
The last one there.
They're
They
providing,
have lighting?
Yes.
Yeah, there's a lighting,
Lighting
there's a light,
details of the
show the lighting detail sheet, please, Bets.
Well, we have a lighting detail, and then on our plans, we actually show location of pole lights in the center. And then we had talked, so there's the detail for our pole light. And we have a couple of those in the center of the parking area. And then the other discussion was to not make it unresidential in character. We talked
Yeah.
about building-mounted lights
Yeah.
around that are gonna be put on photo cells that are actually hardwired.
Yeah, and as I recall, the board was comfortable with that approach.
Correct.
The issue that he's raising, however, is the safety.
Yeah,
I
the
don't-
verbiage
I
of
think-
this,
I think
yes.
this is your language, Jamie. You're talking about waiving the lighting requirement that are in accordance with current state and local safety codes. But there are no state and local safety codes for the project this size, are there?
Well, it varies from town to town on whether or not they have dark sky bylaws or,
Is it a town or a state thing?
it's
State
usually,
doesn't go
it's
town by
usually a
town.
town thing. I'm not aware of any
We don't
state,
have- We don't have any lighting requirements for a project this size.
sure,
So basically, it's just what the planning board decides.
that's
what your
most likely
language-
correct.
And what you had is what we do in a lot of these smaller projects, just lampposts, some of them are solar lit, sometimes there's a light on the outside of the house, the
Yeah.
property.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that was the confusing part.
Gotcha,
Folks are looking for state and local codes, but there are none. Okay.
understood.
I think on principle, we should remove that language from the letter.
Yeah.
Right, exactly, yeah. There's,
So you picked that up, Rich, you picked up his recommendation? Okay, yeah, all right. Any other questions on that letter from the board? Well, back to your original position. You were talking about the draft of the
The-
decision.
the Draft of the decision. All right, so I talked with Rich this afternoon. I believe that you made that small change that we discussed about with the accept, Rich? And then the secondary, that was fine. We looked at the NIPD's aspect of it. We have no problem bringing in proof of NIPD's sign up. The SWIP, we would typically prepare prior to construction. I don't see anything that limits that. I just want to verify that that is the case. The NIPD's registration ahead of time and the SWIP prior to construction, correct?
yeah, we prefer to have it at a pre-construction meeting, so.
Yeah, that's not a problem. Yep. And we would discuss location of signage with EPA contact, et cetera. Yep. You were gonna change section, number 40 in the decision, I believe, to take in Phil's new comment about erosion control.
I did
Okay.
change 40, it actually became 41 because we had to add a condition 24
Okay?
for the board. That was a late discussion that we had.
Yep.
That they're gonna need a stormwater management permit under the general bylaw, so we'll have to prepare an application
I have one with me tonight.
so we'll have to hold a hearing on that. We'll have to do that.
I thought we got away with that special permit.
It's still in the bylaw, they're gonna have, so the board's gonna have to hold a hearing next month. What I did to try to keep things moving along, as a proposal, would be to have as a condition and that, any potential changes, which I don't think would happen with the stormwater management permit, since we've kind of addressed everything here, just to be incorporated into the site plan, so I added a new condition 24 to address that, which then turned 40 into 41.
All right, and just to be sure, the latest one I've got here is draft.
You've got the most current in your packet.
Yeah,
You say we have to have another hearing?
I did, yes.
Well,
Just for the stormwater.
well, yeah, it wouldn't hold up the decision. It would, the decision would go to to the clerk for appeal period, and then we could come get this voted on and get the plans endorsed at the next meeting, as long as it wasn't appealed.
Didn't they already comply with state stormwater
Bringing
rules?
something out of the archives
Yeah,
that
yeah.
we haven't
We,
in the
right
last 5 years?
Al, I've been talking about trying to get this special permit waived, because what you've complied with is the state stormwater. In our regulations, they're still making folks file for a whole separate local stormwater, which is gonna be the same exact thing. That's in this filing for the state, rules and regs. So it's a total redundancy, but this filing and, project doesn't get based on the filing of that special permit. They're separate.
That's it.
You know,
Gonna have another hearing over this?
yeah.
Well, if
I'm gonna work to amend the laws, I didn't make the laws.
Yeah.
I'll work to-
that's officially submitted,
We should have done it concurrently, but
Yeah.
About that,
Yeah.
omitting that 4 years ago.
Yeah,
yeah.
so, in retrospect, we would've done it concurrently, but,
What is the fee for that local filing?
uh,
There usually isn't one that's done concurrently.
Yeah, there really shouldn't be.
Do I understand correctly that they would have to come back at the next meeting anyway to have endorsements done? Or would that not have to happen?
not,
Uh,
not really, no.
Well, you advertise that the public can come and somebody can throw a wrench into the whole project.
Well, he's talking about endorsing the plan. Normally, they wouldn't have to come for endorsement, no.
Got it.
I don't see a fee for the stormwater permit.
Very good.
Sounds like something we don't want to do, but we have to do.
Well, I don't think we've been doing it for a while. So, this thing's rearing its ugly head again. Should
Well,
put a hammer on this. Once and for all.
I trust Rich will provide the hammer in an amended article at the town meeting next time.
Yeah.
Sounds fair.
All right, so the one, just to be safe, it says was done concurrently, so probably, you could ask for a waiver, I guess.
In the past, I know, Jamie, that some folks, when they filed for this site plan,
Mhm.
they filed for a special, a stormwater permit and the local simultaneously. So we
Understood.
ended up signing off on 3 special permits for 1 filing.
Understood. Can we request a waiver from any filing?
Yeah,
We'd like to ask that request now so that we can save ourselves from having to try to figure out if it's applicable and hopefully not cause us an extra meeting.
We can amend this to include that, right? Yeah.
We reviewed it in accordance with all your regulations, so.
Make a motion to waive the special permit filing for local stormwater management on the 7 Hill Street filing site plan and special permit.
Second. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So we'll amend this to include that.
Excellent, thank you.
And he'll still do the work on the hammer.
Excellent.
I'll give you the hammer.
And we'll bring in revised plans at the latest Monday, so that way everybody can look at them prior to.
All right, you were going on, any other issues that you have in that?
No, I think,
I got
I think we
another
looked,
question.
it was pretty
Go
good.
ahead.
And I'm back on the SP 12. It says verify volume of earth to be removed from site, et cetera, et cetera. Explanation provided, issue is resolved. I'm just wondering what the explanation was.
Which page are you on?
Site has been designed to be balanced. It is unlikely that any significant volume of soil will be needed to be removed from the site. I'm just intrigued by the word unlikely.
Okay?
So, and we looked at it generally, for, you know, engineering judgment, based on the elevations that they provided, existing versus proposed, and it seemed like it is likely that it will be balanced.
Right, but there we go with likely again. I mean, why can't we just say it is balanced? It should be balanced. I mean, why do we have to add a,
Because that saves,
Mo- a modifier.
the applicant from getting a survey team and go out there and surveying all the different elevation changes on the whole site, matching that up against the existing plans elevation and come up with a number to see if that number is gonna be exceeding our earth removal permit limits. So normally, as a convenience, the engineers are able to look at a site, generally look at the topography existing and the finished elevations and determine whether there may be an issue with excess earth removal. So our consultants are saying that it likely is not. I guess the only way to get rid of the likely is to do all of that surveying and science.
So the challenge is, if you've been on the site, it's undulating.
Yeah.
It's not like, you know, flat now and it's gonna be flat in the future. So, I don't know, I'm not even sure that all the survey picked up all the undulations, so I don't know that we can say definitively it is, you know, I'm sure it's within a couple hundred yards of either way of that number, but.
Yeah, we tried to design this as a balanced site, but
I'm not questioning the design, I'm questioning the language in the approval. It's
Understood.
open-ended and opens the town to allow you to do whatever you want.
sure. But I mean, we do
So
have to
why
build
didn't-
it per
I mean,
plan.
We could change the language to say, if cut and fill exceeds X amount of yards, then we have an issue or something. I'm not trying to make a big issue, I'm more saying it on principle for future reference. But I think we could do a better job defending the interests of the town with.
Well, we have, in the earth removal permit, we have a stipulation of the amount of earth removed needed to file with a permit. So if it was ever calculated that more was needed, you could go back and make them file.
So
And
it's
that
in
would
there
normally co-
somewhere.
That would normally come on a neighbor complaint or something if there are too many trucks leaving and they want us to look at it. But normally, even the surveys of all the topography of the land are barely accurate at best because it's really hard to calculate when you've got hills like that. So normally we go by the engineer's discretion by knowing the site.
John, do you happen to remember what that number is that triggers the earth removal permit?
No, it's different for residential and commercial. I'm not sure of the commercial number, but, because they're allowed to remove the earth from the footprint of all the buildings and everything by law, so
Sure.
you've got, how many buildings here?
We've got 9.
9, yeah.
So, I mean, they're allowed to remove a lot of earth just by the fact that they're digging 9 foundations, so.
On the project down below, I had 2,000 yards extra of loom, and I trucked it and gave it to the town.
Really? To Bob McGee?
I did.
Our bylaws also state that you're not supposed to remove loom from a site, so that was a good thing, you just gave it to the town.
But he removed it from the site.
Technically, I guess he did.
I think we're working pretty well within the spirit of it all.
Can you live with the language?
It's not, it was more a comment to us, not to them.
Okay, understood. Yeah, I think it's time to close the public hearing. Go ahead, make your
Motion to
motion.
close the public hearing for 7 Hill Street.
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Time to vote on this, right?
No, they've got to make the adjustments in the plan and everything.
Well,
Well, do you have a list of the
Yeah.
modifications to the site plan decision?
sure, you must at this point.
I have the waivers in here, and I have the conditions, approval, the only,
No, the language you have to add to this is existing printout. You have that information?
the only one I don't have is Aaron's. Yeah, everything else.
And that language is?
You want it, you said 2 years, I believe?
2 years.
You're gonna add the waiver too, the waiver for the stormwater.
That's right.
Oh, yeah, and the waiver. for the stormwater.
So there are 2 things.
So could you vote on this?
Yeah, just list
With-
the changes you're
as
going to
amended,
make.
as
As amended, and then you can come in and sign it?
Correct?
Okay.
Yeah. You can sign it tonight if you've got
I
the,
have the signature page prepared.
sure, okay. Entertain a motion to approve the site plan special permit application decision number 2018-03 for 7 Hill Street as amended.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you.
Have a good night, everyone.
Thanks, guys.
All right, our next item on the agenda is Norway Farms Open Space Subdivision request extension to September 15th to file affordable housing permit. Hi.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Elizabeth Maitland with Rob Kane and Jean Kane
Yep.
to present any information you need on our request for this extension, please.
We have your letter.
Okay.
I have, do your members have a copy of this? Okay. I have a question here on your letter. Second paragraph, it says, we would like to explore any options available under the recent revision to the Affordable Housing Bylaw passed at the recent town meeting. Extension would allow us an opportunity to do so. What do you hope to achieve by doing that?
Just to explore the possibility of seeing whether the option to pay into the housing trust might be a viable option for this particular development,
As opposed to designating a particular house that you
as opposed to
previously
designating a
designated?
particular house.
Yeah, we discussed that during the
Yeah, okay.
subdivision hearing.
Well,
right?
yes, there was no option at that time
No, that's right.
to
Yeah.
do that, so we felt with the bylaw
The only
change.
option was to go off-site, correct?
Right.
We had also talked about going off-site. There was absolutely
We had
no
the cash
option.
option since, correct?
Yeah.
Correct, yeah.
All right.
Correct,
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay,
correct.
sure, okay.
Would we entertain the idea of going, of a monetary compensation instead of,
It's in our regulations, we
but
can.
it's our option, it's not,
It's totally our option.
right, that's what
The
I'm
board's
saying.
option,
So,
the board's option.
was that something we'd entertain for this development?
What's that again?
Is that something we would entertain for this development?
I guess we'd know after they presented their case. Right, there's been one case, Aaron, the only thing before this cash option, there was one case there with the Pulte subdivision, rather than putting the 4 affordables on location, we made arrangements for them to put 5 off-site, which are around the Gumps Farm. So in that respect, the town made out better. But as a rule of thumb, as the applicants know, we usually like the affordables to fit in with the neighborhood, dispersed throughout the town, rather than like that. So it's a rare exception that, my guess, that the planning board would allow one of these things.
I think we might also approach the Affordable Housing Trust and say that there's a group who are considering this. If you were to receive this, would this be something that you would find useful? And the answer probably is yes, because they could go around town and find a piece of property to purchase,
Or they might have a larger project on their docket. that
which
work.
would need the funds,
Yeah.
Right.
I
But
think that
the
request to,
downside is that it detracts from the number of affordable houses that you're building in any particular year.
Yes, yes.
Okay, so
Yes.
the town has to use that money to actually generate another affordable house someplace else.
Right. That's true. That's true.
but I have no problem extending this and, personally, and
I don't either.
letting them explore the option and come back perhaps with a
Agreed.
proposal.
Agreed.
So I would,
But that doesn't extend it beyond when it would be required to be built.
that would be right in whatever we write up, if we decided to change the proposal, the criteria would be in there, yes.
Yeah, so the condition is still in there when the delivery of the affordable is in there. If it did change, you'd have to modify the subdivision, because there's conditions in the approval that the board granted. If you recall, when the,
Right, I'm trying to put that together in my head. I mean, we approved it with the affordable house, and the affordable house would need to be built as like the 6th unit based on what we voted at a town meeting, right?
Correct.
Correct.
So the assumption is that whatever extension we're giving them would not extend beyond the construction of the 6th unit.
like you said, if we decide to make any change at all, the criteria that we put in the approval is based on what we want.
Actually, they're asking for 3 months extension.
Yeah, but that's not to build the affordable,
That's
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 to
just to
apply.
submit our, yeah.
To make the
file for the
decision.
special permit.
Right, to submit our application to comply
Right.
with H3. And I do believe, if I recall correctly, it is addressed in the new bylaw that it has to be within the same time frame that the affordable house would be required to be. I'm not certain of that, but I do recall reading
Yeah, we
something
did.
about that. It is
we
addressed
did-
in there.
There was a timing, and
Yeah,
and this subdivision was coming before the board as we were working on the bylaw. If you recall, we didn't have a time when they had to apply for this. So this subdivision, we applied that condition, at least to say, you gotta do it within so many months.
right. And the new bylaw, I believe, does require it to
It
be
does,
done
yeah.
within 90 days of the expiration of the appellate period.
And you just approved, well, the project you just approved has a similar condition in it, because it's, again, before the bylaw technically is in effect, so.
Any other questions from the board? Any questions from the audience? Well, someone want to make a motion to accept this proposal?
I'll make a motion to extend the time frame for the affordable housing special permit for Norway Farms Open Space subdivision until September 15th, 2018.
Second.
All those in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Good evening.
You're welcome.
Thank you again.
No fear of saying aye. All right, gentlemen. 14 Sharon Ave, Police Headquarters.
Yeah, you gotta talk. Yeah, you talk. You don't
want to hear me talk.
Well, well, we need a mic because it's being recorded for home purposes primarily.
We have two items tonight. We would like to discuss solar and also some modifications to the approved site plan.
Right,
So this is going to be on the solar.
okay,
What we're trying to show here, it's in a commercial industrial area with this setting, or this overview.
right,
Go next slide, please. Another bird's eye.
yep,
That in the middle is now all ILP. It's pretty much all developed in there. Just giving you, right here, we've now, per the site plan, we've taken down the majority of these trees. Next, please. Again, this is older photos, but it's all industrial. It's not. This is my first time doing one of these, so I'm not quite sure how to sell this, but it's not going to be an eyesore for residential. It's in a commercial area. It's just kind of, it's all the similar construction, so.
agreed.
So this is one design, and we have the design that we really like to get, which is, can you go to the next one? Yep. This is what we're aiming to have. This building is all electric. What we're trying to put on here with the 3 carports is 302 kilowatts. This building's going to be consuming about 400 kilowatts. This will pretty much very much help offset all the running costs. Right now, I'm in charge of all the budgets for the electricity in the town. We're dying with electricity, so this looks extremely appealing. This would be a 20-year. We're not sure if it's going to be a PPA or a lease. We're trying to still work out all the details because they have a smart plan coming out right now and it's changing things. So we're still going back and forth of how we want to set up the terms. But we went to many solar companies and proposed this idea. Key Solar, Ed's here from Key Solar, Ed Kelly, came back with the best offer to the town. The other companies did not want to do the carports for the fact they cost additional money. The reason we want it is twofold. Primary reason is the original design of this building had a carport built in over here, and the theory behind that is the police run their vehicles almost 24/7 in the winter. That way they're always ready to respond to an emergency because they're sitting outside. So we're wasting a lot of fuel. They also have equipment that, even though we're gonna have some excess space in the sally port, still won't fit. So we like to keep the weather off somewhat of these vehicles. So one of the big disappointments with the funding is we weren't gonna be able to do a carport. So this kind of acts as the carport we were looking for, but it also generates revenue for the town. The other two ports, they are additional. By taking those out, we would lose 43 kilowatts, I believe. But from the general consensus from the police department and the MEC, this will also help the employees' vehicles. You know, you're not going to be in there coming in and out of weather. It'll be one less thing, but the biggest driving cost is it's going to save the town a significant amount of money. We're looking to do like a 20-year. We're anticipating between $15,000 and $20,000 a year for this particular layout, which would be about $400,000 a year, or $400,000 over the 20-year term savings.
All right, how about some numbers now? You were asked to bring numbers, right?
That's what yes.
So what is the total savings on this whole layout as it stands per year, dollar-wise, not kilowatts, dollar-wise?
About
revenue to the town.
$15,000 to $20,000.
$15,000 to $20,000 a year. That's
20 years.
Yeah, that's a 33% variance. You can't come closer than that? 15 to 20.
Because we don't have a
Big-
finalized
it's a big
agreement.
range.
So
Don't you have a projection based on the size of these things and the money we're gonna get paid?
right now we're looking at 6 cents per kilowatt with this plan. Right now we're paying 10.8 cents per kilowatt plus transmission fees for the town.
Right.
We do not have, because there's still some variables in here with the shadowing of the tower, because we've had to do some other issues, but the anticipated savings for the town would be 15,000 to 20,000 per
So
year.
how much of the savings of this 15 to 20, how much of the savings are from the two small carports in front of the building?
Well, you just,
That was the main
it's a
number.
matter
we
of,
asked.
matter of square footage, is it?
What's the total, was it kilowatts or something?
It's 43 for that middle one,
Right,
right?
but what's the total installation?
303 with
Right,
this.
So what's percentage is 43 of,
Well, that's 11%.
so there's your answer.
So
But there's more
11%.
than just 11% to
11%
that.
is $2,000.
There's
If
more,
you're
well,
ranging between 15 and 20, you're ranging 18, it's about, 11% is about $2,000. So the cost to have those two buildings in the center, the loss in electric fees would be $2,000.
So just a correction, South Carport.
Excuse me, please just take a mic, only identify yourself and.
Hi, Ed Kelly from Key Solar.
Sure.
The south array, which is the smaller of the three, is 30 kilowatts. The one in the middle is 61 kilowatts. So those two smaller, that's 91 kilowatts. Then the big long one on the east side of the property is 125 kilowatts, and the roof is 233.
So what are the two smaller ones again for?
30 kilowatts and 61
For
kilowatts.
90.
91
Total
total.
project is what?
Let's see.
303 is what you said?
Oh, it's more
that's
than
the
that.
number I was given.
If you add up the roof, the long one, the mid, and the small, it comes up to much more than 3.
Yeah.
What's
yeah.
the whole project?
The rooftop was supposed to be 233 kilowatts with all
That's correct. The
Right.
roof's 233.
all three carports. There's 87 kilowatts, and the one is 43 kilowatts.
Yeah, I think the long one, Matt, is larger than that. I think that's 445 on this rendering.
449.
Can I give you a definitive number yet? Because we do not have a.
Oh, but just at what we're talking about, 449 and 990 savings, so now we're talking 20%. So 20% of the 15 to 20, calling it 18, would be $3,600 a year in savings. Another question, how many officers are on duty at one time?
I guess the question is, can the design review board make
That's staffed.
Four?
and can they be-
That is staffed as needed for the police department. They have,
No.
generally during the daytime, they would have 2 administrative staff.
Right.
They will have, I
I'm
believe,
talking
3
about
duty
the ones
officers.
that have to get in their car and go out quick and not have to shovel off the
I believe
snow.
4,
4 of them.
I believe so, that's what the new,
All right, how many cars fit inside the Sally Port?
there's 3 parking spots in there.
So that means that there's one spot that needs coverage. Of the full 4 officers that are working the shift, there's one.
But they also have callbacks for emergency
Okay,
responses.
just talking the general shift.
Sure.
Now, in that long carport, how many parking spots? are
19.
in the- How many?
19.
19.
Yes.
So you've got room in there for the extra 1 car that's not in, 2 or 3 call officers, 5 visitors, and an extra 10. So basically, I think as far as utility goes from this, I think the parking is well satisfied by the one that's perpendicular to the police station. I think just for parking purposes. And the solar effect is gonna be, as I said, we're talking about $3,600 a year in a benefit to the town.
Yes,
Am
over
I
20
right?
years.
Am I right in just generally speaking?
Over 20 years, yes.
Right, over 20 years, yeah. But we don't wanna get into, we're just doing an annual thing. We'd have to bring in the present value of the dollar and the factors of interest in that. So anyway, so basically, I think the planning board, when Rich Cater gave his great proposal representing you, not as good as yours, but he was good.
He tries, big shoes to fill.
Right, exactly. We're trying to figure out whether this look is worth the utility for the department and the revenue stream.
So can we go back to the slide then, please? Because Rich took some nice pictures
I
of
took some, yeah, I did,
Hmm.
yeah, I had some street view. Yeah. can we go?
Well, the original thought, as I recall, was the one that would just flash there and disappeared. Can we put that back up for a second? Now, that guy, there was one out front too, right, originally? When Rich came and talked with us, that circled blue area down at the bottom.
No,
of-
that's a site change. That's not a
these are
panel.
some-
Well,
site change.
fair enough, but
Oh, you thought that was a panel there?
I didn't think, someone said it was. There were 4 of them.
No, since I've been
There
involved
may
with it,
now be
there's been
3,
3.
but at one point there were 4. Someone showed us 4. Anyway, so there's been a cutback from 4 to 3 already, John.
Where was that old?
Can you go back to the road view, please? So this is, as of yesterday, a picture of what you see when you drive up the hill. It's a gray building. It's not aesthetically a beautiful building. It's a functional building. You can go again, please. And just another angle going up the water department road.
So I have a question.
That's a change order wall.
Yeah. Can you put the, one of the pictures of the 3 that you're proposing up there again?
Sure.
That's one, there you go. Now, you're talking about a possible lease, is that what I understood, of the
Yes,
solar
the town
panels?
doesn't have the funds, the capital to purchase this, so we're looking to do some sort of lease or
Yes.
some sort of smart program.
Now, if you were to lease, let's just go down that road for a moment. Does the lease pay for the structure to hold those solar panels up?
Yes.
Or it does?
It's a zero cost to the town to put this
It
in.
creates the carports, all 3 carports.
There is zero cost to the town to put this in.
Understood.
Have you brought these to design review?
I have not. This is not in my normal purview of my position. I've become the site person and the OPM and everything else with this
We have a
project.
design
And
review member here,
one of the many
actually.
things we're trying to do is save money. And this is a zero output, and this is just a,
Yeah, I understand.
This is a really interesting one for me, and I'm gonna get on my high horse here for a minute, because I spoke about this at town meeting a while back. And what I said at the town meeting is, I asked a question, which I think the police chief answered, which was along the lines of, in the planning process, did anyone take into consideration that we're taking a civic building from the center of town and sticking it in an industrial park in the woods?
Right.
There's a public presence to a police station. Granted, we still have the fire station, but we've taken the police station and we've essentially made it obsolete in terms of its civic presence. Right, so not only have we done that, but when the parking lot came through, which is another sticking point of mine, I made comments that this is, unlike all of the projects in town that we fight about a field of asphalt, we should add more trees here. Well, we ended up with a field of asphalt again. So it's a second planning guideline that I feel we've not
Consistent
defended.
with.
So third, another sticking point for the town is solar arrays, right? We've made significant efforts in the last couple of years to provide significant restrictions on where and how solar arrays can be applied. Now, granted, those are in residential districts, but the concept's the same. You can't just go around town putting up solar arrays wherever you want because they're convenient, right? So in my mind, there's three significant planning principles being brought into question here, all for the sake of money. And it's an interesting one because it is in an industrial park in the middle of the woods, which is already built. It's a decision that's not gonna go back on. So, but by the same token, it's a town development representing the interests of the town and not visually representing many of the things that we sit here and defend on a monthly basis. So, I don't know what to do.
I wouldn't necessarily disagree with your first 2 points there. I mean, I think those are things that may have required additional discussion or maybe didn't work out in the best way they could have. But in this instance, I think that this proposal identifies not only a design aspect, but it also provides benefit from a structural standpoint, like he was identifying with covering to protect the cars from weather, as well as offsetting some of the costs that'll be coming into the town. I think that he identified that that building alone will be generating somewhere around 400 kilowatts, or requiring 400 kilowatts. And my off-the-book math here gave us that we would be accommodating for that with the roof and the arrays that we'd be putting in. So we'd be offsetting that or mitigating that cost.
We're anticipating about, 75% of this building's usage to be consumed, or using as panels.
That's why we had to get the breakdown, because if this was a utility that they needed this extra space to park in it, that's a big consideration. If that really is a functional utility, if it's a matter of just covering more for solar, you could cover the whole parking lot. And the other thing is the dollar savings of this $3,600 or whatever, is that worth changing all of the planning board's background on other decisions or what we make everybody else do for that saving? So that, to me, when we'd sent Rich back to get numbers, to me, these were the things we were weighing. Now, if this was what's the total electric for this building gonna be per year?
At today's rate, we're paying 10.8 cents per kilowatt, and we're paying about a little over 8 cents per kilowatt in transmission. So we were anticipating, that's 400, I don't have that, 400 kilowatt, we're assuming per.
But that's all budgeted anyway. I mean,
Right, all I'm saying is the
Well, it is and it isn't.
the $3,600 savings in the extra two buildings is really de minimis compared to, we're looking at the aspects of design and planning concept. That's what I was saying.
yeah, and to follow on my statement, I don't know, it's just really hard. I mean, I would hate to be sitting here for the next 10 years and have people coming in and say, I don't understand why I can't do it. You guys did it when you did the police station.
Well, for one thing, it's in an industrial area, it's not in a residential area, which is really where we've had our issues. We have a set of guidelines, which you referenced earlier in your conversation, about where you can and can't plant a solar array in your yard. And this is an industrial area. I mean, this is.
But let's follow that logic through, though. So let's take the proposal on Pond Street, right, that we were talking about last time we met. I mean, if a similar proposal like this were to come in for that, what would our response be?
I think that's a different story. I mean, you got Pond Street as a major artery. This is up in the woods. I mean, if you're talking aesthetics, which I think is really what you're after at that point, it's different when you can see it.
I think I'm down to principle.
Okay, well,
The landfill, the converted landfill's right next to the Cape Cod Estates, all those houses there, but is
There's no
that,
butters there.
there are no butters
No
to
butters,
the
yeah.
landfill?
As a matter of fact, we have
Okay.
another big solar field, isn't that correct, Matt, that we're working on, that's three
Yes,
times the
so-
size of our current one?
Again, I oversee a lot of the budgets in the town, and electricity is the biggest driver right now. It's going crazy. So there's been some parcels that were previously approved as a solar, I'm not sure their designations, solar overlay. So we've been working with the current company. We signed a LOI, non-binding LOI, for them to kind of just see what we can produce. We have some lots that, again, they're adjacent to the power lines. They're behind River's Edge. I believe that's the name.
River's Edge, right.
They're off an old rail bed. We're looking at doing a large, state has a cap at 10 megawatts for municipality. We're looking at different options of putting in a large, partially consumptive, partially lease solar field out. But right now we're doing feasibility because it is in a remote location. The cost it would take for the company, whoever's going to do it, to run the feeders and do an interconnect, they're looking at it right now. We're looking at different options. There's a lot that's going to be several months out before we have any ideas. We're just getting, so we can then figure out the scope of what we want to do. But this has become a massive issue for the town. Is that
Can these be placed on that lot, because you own the abutting property too, correct? Can these be placed so that they're not blocking the front of the building?
the other area is owned by the water department. I know it's town property, but I don't.
The property line's right on the backside of the building too, right?
Property line's about right here, so these are gonna be right on the property line, the piers for that one.
What about behind the building?
14 feet off the back of the building.
But up by the driveway, it's all town land,
So
up by
we
the
have,
water tower.
we have cleared all this out here per the design that was approved.
Right, yeah.
We didn't wanna take down more trees.
Could that go there?
What's going in there?
Nothing, it's just town-owned land by the water tower.
Why did we clear the trees?
Right. They cleared trees to have a back driveway into the police station, I believe.
It could go all over the place, but this was going to be it was part of the thought process. It would also, you have a regional dispatch that are there 24 hours a day. They could park their vehicles underneath there. There'd be one less thing to, at the end of the shift. They don't have to clear the snow off. It would benefit that as well. It was gonna be multiple purposes, but it would be a convenience for a part of it as well.
You have a drawing that shows just the back carport,
Yes, sir.
and now you got one that shows three. Do you have one that eliminates the front
The
one there?
one, yeah.
The smaller
No,
one?
we don't. Yeah.
I do not.
You know, you keep,
And I was gonna say, what if we, this back drive access, it's all on the same property?
It's two different parcels of land. They're both owned by the town.
that's a semantic.
Could we put a second unit over that road, so you drove under it?
As opposed to what?
As-
And
well,
and eliminating the two in front, is that what you're saying?
Well, I would certainly eliminate the one in front.
Yeah.
I guess I'm just asking if it's an option back. But
Well,
I think based on everything I've said, I don't see how I could get behind the one in front. The other two, maybe I wouldn't lose sleep over. But in order to make up for the one we're removing, if we could put one behind, or conversely, if we put one behind and got rid of the two in front, that would be even better.
Well, the one in front is generating probably
30 kilowatts.
What?
Yeah, but you could put one behind it equal to the large one, and you'd be in excess of these two, I guess would be.
On
right?
the other property.
Yeah, if you put it, essentially the same thing right here, like a covered bridge.
So that would, well,
You know, we
that's
got-
on an incline over there that we'd have to do some working of the earth to, I believe, do that one.
So, you know, what
the
keeps coming back, it was before everybody here was on this board, except for Walter. Island Lighting was told they couldn't use the color sheathing, metal sheathing for their building across the way. We keep talking about industrial park and what does it matter, but we took an applicant across the way with probably the biggest building in this town, probably one of the highest tax bases in this town. And we control the outside sheathing on that building. So what do we say when he was back and he said, you wouldn't let me put the building the color I want, but let the town do that? So regardless of it being an industrial park, I mean, the board's acted in a certain way for years and years.
Do you think it's appropriate to speak on behalf of Jared or no? Jared ILP, Jared O'Neill, and I'm not sure the father's name.
Jim.
They're also, using solar over there, and they're hoping to do solar in the future on their property as well, on the solar canopies.
They were giving hell on their overhead carport and where the storage was gonna be. Remember that, we gave 2 meetings on where the overhead carport and how it was landscaped and where it was placed and the color of the carport, and where they were gonna put trucks occasionally.
Storage, yeah.
Storage,
Yeah.
occasionally. So basically, if we're talking about this is only here or there, I mean, it just gets into the consistency, that's all. You know, and the fact of the matter is, this project, you know, I think it's pretty much known, it's way, way over budget. It's you know, it's gone badly, is kind.
Sure, and
Because I was on this building committee years ago anyway and didn't join in this part of it, but, you know, we don't want to get to the point that we're destroying the whole aesthetics of everything just because we want to save a couple $1,000s to subsidize. What percentage is this building over budget now? You can say it. It's a public record.
I can't give you a firm number on that right now. I wasn't prepared to talk about that, so
No, I know that, but you're bringing in the
Well,
economics of the building and
sure,
everything.
and we're looking at the long term, because this is also, we're
Right.
looking at locking in at 6 cents a kilowatt here, and electricity rates keep going up, and we're looking to lock in at a certain thing, so there's more than just the current value of that 6 cents in these kilowatts that we're producing, because those are gonna continue producing, and electricity rates are gonna keep going up, so if we could lock in something 20 years, this could be, it might be $3,000 now, but we don't know what's gonna happen in the future.
I mean, I understand the present value of the dollar. I have a
But
CPA
it's been a
license.
volatile market, and
I understand.
What are we deciding here now?
To me, it boiled down to, does the extra utility and the extra money justify the modification and the style?
Yeah,
That's
I
what
mean,
it boils down to me.
there's no permit in front of us, or, I mean, what are we,
So
why are we having this conversation?
It's a modification of a site plan.
Modification of the
Modification
site
of the
plan,
site
right. Right. Well, I think there seems to be some consensus that the aesthetics here are kind of driving us in a direction that you don't want to go. And we're looking for some compromise that says, hey, maybe we could live with this, but if you did that. So I think what I'm hearing, and I haven't heard from all the members, but what I'm hearing is, gee, that one out front, that smaller of the 3, really, gosh, you ought to move that somewhere. Hide it, move it around, put it up, put it somewhere, get it off there. And maybe we can live with the other 2. Don't necessarily change the square footage of solar panels, but don't put it there, is really what we're saying.
I would say, even if you extended this one, to the extent that you could to make up for it.
It looks like it's,
I know I'm an architect stuck in my principles here, but.
it looks like it's pretty much as far as it can go.
Well,
but-
it looks like they're trying not to go over the grass island.
that's
Yeah.
exactly where
Will
they're.
the back one be longer?
Yeah, well, there's some limitations with the stormwater
No.
thing, right?
No, that's part of this whole area has the stormwater for the park out here, so we are limited to how we can design this on this parcel. If it's something that we can look into doing on the other parcel, that would be fine. It's just, again, we're just trying to maximize and save the town as much money as possible.
I just can't get past, it seems like too big of a hit to a principal just to try and make up some money for the town. It doesn't feel good to me. I don't think I don't think that, the one in front just doesn't sit well with me. The rest.
And I will also state that the police chief has asked for the 3 of these to be in as design. He feels adamantly that he would like these for the building, for the coverage of the parking spaces for when people pulling up. You would not necessarily getting out in the rain or snow. You'd have some sort of coverage for the handicap. There'll still be a gap, but just I guess we're all in the agreement, and in my opinion, it doesn't matter in this. There's a huge ugly tower right here. That's gonna be the detractor that was already.
We wanted that moved to the side of the building, but we were overruled by the committee and the chiefs and that, because we thought that was aesthetically improper. And we thought that during the winter months, icicles would hang from that and be a deterrent to people walking underneath it, which I think figured out that they're gonna.
John, you're in
box
luck.
around.
We moved it.
I know.
They moved the
I'm not sure the
Well,
height,
not-
I'm not sure the height of the tower was ever really openly discussed either.
Well, the original concept was to put it up
I've
on the
got all
water
kinds of
tower.
principal issues. It's just, I'm stuck on this one, sorry.
Again, trying to make a situation better.
If you got rid of that
Town.
one, the one in the front there,
Get better.
and just the two.
Relocate the one in the front, the smaller of the three.
Relocate it
Either
to.
relocate it
there
or
is a
remove it,
relocation
either way.
option here. I think-
Relocate it to Foxborough.
Not the Foxborough. I don't want
It's a small-
Foxborough to get
It's a small
credit.
percentage of the overall project.
It's
I don't-
minor dollars.
Yeah, I don't want Foxborough to get credit for $2,000 a year, whatever it is. Can you work with the water department to put it on their property?
I quoted there, I can also look,
I guess what I'm trying to say is, personally, I don't want to see you compromise on the cost savings that you're trying to drive for, but I am sympathetic to the aesthetic issue that the rest of the board is raising, and I'd like very much to take that little one and move it out back somewhere.
so may I propose we try to maybe even, I don't know if this is possible, add another set of panels to this larger one, and then make up the difference there?
There are some options structurally to make the arrays wider. We'd have to look at how that affects the footings and locations for that, but there are options other than this particular design to make it wider.
And what's the pitch of the roof on the top there?
So, they're about 2%.
On the building?
Oh, on the,
On the roof of the carport,
yeah,
On the
about
carport,
2%,
okay.
yeah.
and that's the proper pitch to get the
Yeah,
the
yeah,
solar
so there,
effect?
it's a dual incline, so there's actually a Y on the bigger ones, and the water comes to the middle into a gutter.
And it just retains all the snow?
Yes, and the idea with the snowfall, with the inverted Y over parking is you don't have slide off. And then on the smaller one, the slide off would happen towards the grass. It's almost totally flat.
So as it melts, it melts into the
It
center?
melts into the
and
center,
then
correct, yeah.
It's
I
collected?
don't wanna bring up another subject, because you got enough going here, but now you're talking a difference in stormwater.
Oh, so,
Well,
I think they're only covering hard surfaces anyway.
Yeah, are you?
Well, maybe not.
No.
But now you have these roof runoffs going into, where are they going, Matt? Where's the stormwater going when it runs off the roof?
It's going into,
Going into your stormwater system?
it is.
Yeah.
So, what was the land underneath there before? Was it impervious or was it pervious?
It was impervious.
It was what?
Impervious.
Impervious before. Okay, so the runoff change is the same then.
yeah, it's essentially, yeah, no change, right? All right, so, I guess what you're hearing is, can you figure out a way to take the equivalent square footage of that small one and put it in the other two somehow?
All right, we can gladly
Yeah,
do that.
we can revise designs to try to pick that capacity up with just the two arrays.
And if you can do that, sounds like the members of the board can sleep at nights.
Great, thank you.
And the height under the carport, what's the height to the ground?
I believe these ones are at 14 feet,
14 feet?
yeah.
That was a concern that we had, because we wanted to be able to have, if a tractor trailer need to come through here or
Yeah.
anything, that
Yeah.
there would be no clearance issues.
Yeah.
Oh, so the tractor trailer can go right under the end?
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. We didn't want to limit that because we have 14-foot doors, so we didn't want to have any.
And the gentleman here from Key Solar says that there's a way to configure that and probably can do it, huh?
Yeah, we'd have to obviously bring it back to the engineers, but we'll take as much of that capacity onto the other two arrays as feasible, and that'll be the number, I think.
Can the rest of the board live with that?
I think that would be an improvement.
I would have liked to have seen the handicap spots have some coverage as well, but
You can sleep with it, huh? Yeah, okay, all right. How about you, sir? You, sir. I could say some other things, but I'll say sir.
Definitely be an improvement. Takes away from the visual.
Move the handicap spots around the corner.
Okay.
there you go, put them all the way in the back.
Put them in the water department land.
Okay, so it sounds like that's, the board can live with that as a compromise if you can live with that.
Sure. just because I don't know how this process works. I'd like to, we're doing site work right now because the building's actively being constructed. Would it be permissible, because I imagine we're gonna review this again, for them to give me, if, I'd like to put the underground conduits in, because we're at a stage where we're looking to do this right now. Would I be able, would you feel comfortable if I put conduits beneath the ground pending approval before we do anything else, but just get a pathway to the electric room before?
I think so.
I would.
I would, yeah, so no reason not to.
Okay.
If we're agreed.
You
to
don't
this-
really have a say over that, do they?
Well, no, but I mean,
If they want to put conduits in the ground, put conduits in
But I
the
don't
ground.
want to do something that's a waste of the town's money, because that's what I'm gonna do on the town right now, because we don't have a.
Those conduits are gonna serve at a minimum the two back
Yes.
units.
Yes, but I just don't wanna.
I don't think any of us are taking issue with the two back units.
Okay.
Is that right?
Okay.
now, do
So-
we have to, at some point, we have to vote on a modification of the site plan, right?
Yeah.
We have to concur that it's a minor modification and not,
First, yeah.
not a major, because a major would involve a new public hearing. But, I think it's minor.
Make a motion to that effect.
He says confidently.
You do have other changes,
It's
Mr.
likely
Chairman, too.
to be minor.
Yeah, it's likely.
Yeah, but we gotta take care of this one
Well,
first, don't we?
Okay.
I make a
Alright.
motion just to classify this change to the public safety building as a minor modification.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so we'll get that one. Now, your next item was moving parking spaces, moving a guardrail, moving light poles. What are you proposing?
Matt, you wanna,
No,
wanna come sit
Do you want me
here?
to pull that up on the,
Sure. There was a member that had, or there were some questions about looking at other solutions for solar structures.
Oh, that was me.
All right. I did do a little research on what you proposed.
Things I saw quickly. You know, I had a question on Solar Edge. He just told me on the side that the panels are 400 watts per panel.
So that was one of the things, we looked at a lot of different companies, and ILP put us in contact with this company because they made a superior offer to the town. They're trying to get more into the town. They do a lot of work with ILP, and they're hoping to expand an ILP system. But they were putting in a higher wattage panel. They were giving us the best value for the kilowatt. I mean, this company, we went through many, many companies. I had the town council review how we could do, there's some different, it's not like a normal procurement process with solar. So we vetted out this company. They've been highly recommended. I've been very impressed with them, and they've been right on every time except for getting numbers from me, which I was kind of, but anyway, but the Smart Flower, not applicable for us. The ground mount, these are $30,000 a piece. We'd have to have.
It's just that the angle is basically flat, and it's just doesn't follow the sun. It's not directly
No.
into the sun. So regardless of the rating of the panels, the efficiency of the panels, because of the way they're sitting, isn't optimal.
Yeah, so I mean, we're not gonna get 100%, and panels do end up derating over time. So we're asking for optimal, but bottom line is, I'm just trying to save the town as much money as I can.
They had something, I didn't ask him while he was here, they had something like Solar Edge.
Solar Edge is more for when you're dealing with shading.
If you had all these panels will not be on one circuit or individual circuits for each one. So on my house, I got 40 panels and there's 3 lines. If I didn't have Solar Edge and one panel broke, or if one panel was in shade, you're correct about the shade, but if one panel failed for manufacturing purposes, that whole loop would go down. I'd lose 30% of my power. So it's not just shade, it's performance of the panel brings all the other panels in that loop down to the poor performance.
On this, they remote monitor the whole
They do
system.
the same thing for me as well, and just
And it
about
doesn't
anything that-
benefit them not to have it optimized
Yeah.
perform, it's not building a house, but this is a big
That's
money
true.
output, so they want this to perform at the, highest efficiency they can,
Yeah,
so.
and Solar Edge was developed by one company that licenses it to others, like Solar City has it, and I'm trying to think, I think the other company affiliated with Costco has it, but only two companies I know of have it. I never dealt with Key Solar, so I don't know, and that's
So
the only reason I was asking the question.
They've done that system many times. He said it wouldn't be applicable for us. It just, we don't,
Okay. The question is, the only question I had in having purchased it, I know that they run through loops. All these panels at the most are gonna be on, I don't know, 10 loops back to the power. And if one panel was to fail and you don't have Solar Edge, you lost that entire loop. You're gonna lose all your power in the wintertime with this, but wintertime power is probably 1/10 of what you're getting in the summertime anyway.
well, no, unfortunately, the building's all electric, so we're
Yeah,
gonna.
I know.
Oh, you're saying
I'm
in
just
general,
saying what
yes.
your benefit is, it's gonna be covered in
The
snow and it's not gonna
landfill,
shed.
it goes way down in productivity in the wintertime. Yeah, you're right, they're about 1/4% of what we produce in
Yeah.
the summertime. But
I get it, they guarantee what it's supposed to produce, and as long as they're giving you a guarantee on what the production is, that's fine. So that becomes their responsibility as well, is that
They
correct?
own the performance of the panels, yes, and they have, they give you they won't give you an outright guarantee, they give you, all these companies, they give you a performance guarantee of, they'll give you percentage-wise of this is what they produce, what the output's supposed to be, and it should be within a certain percentage of that.
Yeah, they
then
usually
they-
average a couple of years together to make it fair, in case you got a really bad year or something. But they should be standing behind what they put in place for you.
One of our issues is the SMART program's changing. They used to have the, I think it was called the MREC system, which is being
SREC? Oh, the SRECs, yeah.
They're going to a SMART system, so we haven't officially signed. We have an LOI, we have an intent to move forward with them, but we haven't signed it because we're waiting to see how this plays out, to see what the absolute best deal is. But we've been guaranteed a benchmark of 6 cents per kilowatt, which was lower than everybody else.
But you won't own the SRECs because you're only leasing. They own the SRECs and they get to sell them every year.
But we're trying to,
Okay, I got it.
that's what we're trying to, we haven't decided that, and the outcome of this, because it's not all worked out with the state right now. But what I do have going on, the reason it's important to do it now is the construction. There's not asphalt there right now, so we're trying to come up with this so I don't rip up what we just spent
Sure.
a massive amount of money to put down. So,
Anyway, I'm glad you looked at my note.
well, I did my research and I looked at, and I wanted to, well, again, so, preface this as I've never done site work before, but
All right, so what are we proposing here?
okay, there's been some modifications that needed to happen. The, first of all, we'll start bottom left-hand corner. The generator pad is larger than it was supposed to be for the original drawing. I believe it was originally 20 by 18 and it's now 28 by 28. That was per the manufacturer's instructions. They tried to make it as tight as humanly possible, but between the working clearances of the different HVAC units outside, they had to have a minimum, and that's very tight.
Which of the two rectangles?
The larger one.
The larger one.
The smaller one with the bollards around it is the Eversource transformer there.
Okay.
So that pad has grown significantly in size. Why they miscalculated, I can't speak for them, because we put in what they specified. So the pad has grown, and we can't adjust it.
Is that fenced?
That's supposed to have a PVC fence around it, yes.
Okay, all right, yep.
All right, the next thing we did is we put in, you guys gave us the approval to do the Ready Rock block system. They wanted to do a Versalock. Ready Rock goes up a lot faster, and
We saw the pictures of it.
so it's a superior product. One thing it does, though, is it does have a little bit of a wider footprint than the Versalock. So we've added basically 10 inches to a very congested site, which I've had many arguments with the civil engineer on this, because I don't feel that the original could have fit what we needed to fit in to begin with. So we've made a situation that was already super tight worse. So what we've proposed on here is we've shifted the whole parking lot in 2 feet to accommodate our 19-foot parking spaces, and also the 24-foot wide roadway.
So the ones in front, the roadway, and the ones in back all have
They've
shifted
all shifted up 2 feet.
2 feet. Okay.
Not the ones in the back, only the ones in the front. So
No,
what-
no, I
what's-
mean,
what-
but the ones,
yes.
the parallels, the two
Yes.
sets of parallel here.
So that has all gone in, so that our grass area has lost 2 feet, basically.
All right.
By doing that, there was some bollards that were, you can see the hip wall. Here, why don't I just,
Forward point is probably better.
there are 2 flagpoles right here. They had 5 bollards going here, which we've asked to have removed because now that we've shifted it, it's going to be in the ADA ramp area there, so it won't fit. They weren't, nobody could explain why we had them there. They were, the bollards are there to protect the front entrance. They weren't really doing anything besides protecting a CMU wall. So that's being removed. I've also changed the orientation because it makes sense in my mind. We want to put the light post behind the guardrail. I just got a $5,000 bill to replace 2 at this Freeman, 2 light posts. They're very expensive. I like to have them protected behind the guardrail. It also helps fit the post because the base of the post is 2 feet. The guardrail with the post in the front is 1 foot, and then the vertical granite curbing is also 6 inches. If we do it the way they showed it, we can't cheat it back at all. So we want to put the post behind the guardrail when they had originally had the post in front of the guardrail, so they were exposed. So something that made sense, we thought, and it hopefully will save the town money again. The biggest thing that, well, this is moved now. This was supposed to be there.
Why was it moved?
What was moved, the tower?
Tower had to be moved. The original plan, the architect had the tower foundation at a 16-foot square, which when you have you could fit it in under behind this hip wall. There were a lot of concerns about it. The pad that had to go in is 26 by 26 about. Wow. So 16 by 16 to 26 by 26. Also, the tower manufacturer said it must be a minimum of 8 feet off the foundation. So now we've moved this tower out. So before it was supposed to be here,
Yep.
and it was hidden, and you had your fence. Now we've gone out further, so we're gonna have to bring the fence out about 2 feet, because the only thing you're gonna see on the foundation are the 3 piers and the tower, obviously, but you're not gonna see it's all being buried. It's 7 feet below grade. So we now have to increase the size of this whole area, move the fence out. But the good thing about it is we all had a lot of concerns, including the building commissioner, about snow and ice buildup on this tower with the proximity to the entrance to the building. And we didn't feel comfortable, but we were assured and guaranteed by the architect it wouldn't be a safety issue, and it was brought up many times. There's comments from the building commissioner that he wasn't happy about it. So it's not an ideal move, but it's kind of it kind of works out on a safety aspect of it. That has been poured. We tried digging it, and it just kept moving because of different site conditions. It's all ledge up there. It's a kind of a miserable spot, and we couldn't get it because we don't want to undermine the building because it was built on top of ledge. So, in order to fit it off the footing and get the 8 feet off and everything else, that's where it went.
So that's projecting out from the building 8 feet more?
The outside of the slab is out, so it's off the building, I believe, 14 feet.
feet more.
And it was right against the building?
It
is
was
that it?
pretty darn close.
So now the fencing comes out,
A few more feet, because the initial plan, the tower was in here, so the
And
fencing
the
was gonna come
fencing is-
straight out, and then
The-
in.
The new fencing is encroaching on the grass area, is that
Yes,
right?
sir.
Yeah, okay, all right, yep.
Yep.
What was that area for that was fenced in? Did it have any purpose aside from just fencing in the tower?
Well, there's a break room right here.
Yeah.
And I think the idea was in nicer weather, there's gonna be a picnic table out there, so they can go outside and have their lunch.
this sort of reminds me of the 40B plans. Because
Race you to the top.
There's not any of
on
this,
the
man. I'm just trying to make it
40B,
work.
the only grass you have is on the septic field.
Yeah,
And in this one, the only grass you have is on the storm water.
yeah,
field.
yeah.
Okay, so.
You get your trail, you gotta.
We wanted the tower in the back of the building.
The other change,
Was it out the room?
Betsy, would you mind scrolling
Between
it
there
down,
and
please?
the next lot, which is about 14 feet off the back of the building.
The site's been very challenging, and a lot of things that were proposed haven't happened. One of the, a couple things have happened here. This, actually, and he wouldn't incorporate it for me. I'm changing the angle of this. So it should, here's the entranceway, here's the roadway. And the reason this road was designed like that is because he had the two generators going like this. The generators with the fuel tanks that they had to have. That was the original size pad, and that's our PD pad. But that's the MEX pad. It's grown significantly. So the roadway was pushed over, which you'd have to jog over, then in. We have the land over here. We're keeping the same road, but making it shoot in at a softer angle. But these had to go because they would have been, this one would have been here. So those was also forced to change.
Now, that road is on
Our property, water department property.
water department, right, as you said, the property line between the,
So the property line is right here for next door, which is the
yeah, right, but going up to the water.
all
depart-
ours.
Yeah,
and
but
behind.
where's the division between the police land and the water department land? That's what I'm asking.
Basically
That
right here.
dash line right there?
Yep,
Okay, I got it, right at the back of those parking
they're
spaces.
building right onto the line.
Gotcha, all right, yep. So that road is on water department?
Yes,
land.
sir.
Yeah, okay, all right.
Those are the major changes. One,
Those are the minor changes.
Yeah.
minor changes.
Likely.
Likely.
Again, it's been a challenge, but we're just trying to make sure we're keeping everybody in the loop and doing this properly, so.
Yeah.
Motion to classify these changes minor modifications and make a second motion to approve.
Second and second.
All right, we have two motions on the floor. Let's vote them in sequence. The first is a motion to accept these changes as minor modifications. All those in favor say aye. Aye. And the second one is to, what was the second one, sir?
Approve.
Approve, okay, to approve them as changes. So all those in favor of that?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
What were those back
Yes,
corner
and I,
things that
submitted
got
one to the
bigger?
planning board.
Generators, I think is what he said.
These are
back-
generators, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Can you put solar ports over those?
well, excuse me, I just realized one thing I am gonna point out. Right here, I noticed this right before I came in. He's drawn a fence for the backside of the generators. There is I'm not planning on putting that in, there is a retaining wall with
Yeah,
a fence right
right.
there, so it would be a waste of money.
Agreed.
But that is drawn on there, which I don't
No,
see
we
any.
we worked that other lot a year ago or so.
But when he moved it, he put the fence there, and it makes 0 sense. But no, I don't believe that solar. I think it would be a venting issue, and I don't know how close we can put them on against the neighbor's line because we literally own 14 feet from the back of the building.
Thank you very much for coming in and
Yeah,
laying that
thank
all
you,
out for
Matt.
us, Matt.
What about the paint changes?
Oh, yeah, there's one more, that's right, that's right. You want to
paint
change?
changes?
This, yeah, this is, Aaron's been waiting for this all night.
Oh, yeah.
Exterior paint scheme, masonry walls, what do you want to do?
We still want to paint it blue. Hang on. But we want to paint a thin blue line on it, and that's it. There's a beautiful ground face.
You can't paint stone.
I know.
The architect and I have a lot of back and forth, so not best of friends. Originally, this was supposed to be all blue. It was going to be very blue. It was blue jean blue, basically. It was a blue. Now we're going to have only this line blue. So you're going to have a nice looking split face block. and the panels, which are basically gray and with a very thin blue line right in there.
That'll be the thin blue line.
Yes, sir. We're also going to receive a credit. We're trying our best to reel in costs that have been issues, and it was going to be overwhelming with the amount of blue.
So the masonry was gonna be blue.
It's gonna
What's it
be-
gonna be now? Natural?
It's going to be natural, so it's a tan color and a gray panel
Understood.
with a
Yep.
thin blue line.
The thin blue line. We'll have to remember that, yeah.
It was between that or a caution tape yellow line up there. We weren't sure to keep out, but
And you're getting a credit from Sherwin-Williams for the,
not Sherwin-Williams, but the painting contractor. Yes, we are going to get I think a $4,000
Yeah,
deduction
another motion
off.
to deal with that.
So I thought it was for ceiling, as well. That's just
So these
aesthetics.
blocks
That's
have
covered
all the
in the
waterproofing
previous motion.
cast into them.
Okay.
So they're 100% waterproof. We don't have to treat the blocks. That was all part of their spec, the block. It was an aesthetic thing.
No mortar in between blocks.
The mortar has waterproofing in it. It was all supervised when they were installing it to make sure they were putting it in the right mix.
Touched again.
No, we need to vote on the paint
Besides
change. It's incorporated in our
washing.
earlier motion.
Touching the stripe, and they've actually,
Earlier.
it looks nice. They did a little area to see it, and it looks
Heard that.
much better than the hideous blue jean blue. I mean, it's as blue as blue could go, and it was too much.
9 o'clock.
And it's only on that area of the building.
So the CMU wall only does two walls, the front and on the street side. The rest of it's all just the paneling.
Thank you, Matt.
Good
Thank
job.
you, Matt.
Well, you better escape before something else comes up.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Got much more comfortable in the third presentation than you were in the first presentation.
I've become.
You warmed up.
I'm sure you guys have heard we've tried limiting. The town's taken a very active role in the construction management of
There you
this.
go, it's building.
I'm also doing the site work. Neither one of those have been in my history. So
Well, you're doing
I've
nice
spent a good 6-7 hours a day with this, and it's starting to really happen now. But yeah, you can tell this is the line right here, which is going to be blue.
Nice looking
But-
rock right there. Nice looking rock.
It actually it looks much sharper because when we started looking at it, it was going to be overwhelming blue, and that was pure architect decision on that one, where you wanted it.
It's crazy architects.
All right, thank you, Matt. Next item up is Design Review Board appointment, Bob Nicodemus to a 3-year term. His term expires June 30th. Someone want to make a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor of appointing Bob Nicodemus to the DRB for a 3-year term, say aye.
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 Can I vote?
Yeah, you're a planning board member. You can vote, sure you can vote.
Aye.
Aye.
Might be a problem if you vote no.
Yeah.
Abstain.
All right, Saddle Ridge Estates, vote to pull a bond to complete the roadway, $51,442.36. Rich, you're on. You want to tell us about that?
Sure. So Bob McGee, DPW superintendent, approached me about he wanted to do some paving work on North Street, and Saddle Ridge has been finished as far as the houses go, but they haven't finished the remaining of the development. And so he had suggested that you talk to the developer and that you need to finish the work. And developers split up and sold off their interest. So
He hasn't been heard from in 3 years, has he?
yeah, so
Who's it?
Mike Caratola,
He never paid the $2,000 fees either.
he didn't pay the. That's correct. It's another subdivision.
He never transferred the open space either, did he?
He never transferred the open
That's why we
space.
transfer it now before the.
Yeah. So.
Well, he missed it on Lewis too.
Yeah. So, yeah, as a side note, going forward, we'll make sure we get the open space up front when the, and the second side note is when the lots get released, we'll make sure that we have the open space money at the same time
Right.
and not,
All right.
Put ourselves in-
What's the cost of the road gonna be? Does Bob know?
so Bob hasn't done a updated cost to complete. We're holding 51,000, and unfortunately, the estimate from 2012 was 47,000. So, although he has some contracts and he's gonna, marry it with some work
Is the
that he's
granite-
trying to do.
Is the granite curbing in or the street trees running?
No,
Nothing.
no.
All right.
I will say though, there was a record that the board did vote to go with the monolithic berm versus the vertical back in 2012.
Okay.
So he's gonna put his, do an estimate to complete and see where we're at and see how the budget comes. So hopefully we're not too far off. There's a lot of
Yeah.
cleanup work to do there too, though. I went down there. It's pretty
Yeah.
messy, but
What is this?
Saddle Ridge.
Saddle
Saddle
Ridge
Ridge
Estate.
Estates, yeah.
What is
Yeah.
the road name?
Saddle Ridge Road.
Oh, okay.
Saddle Ridge Road, yeah.
That
So
makes sense, I
what,
guess.
so we need to do is
Spelled like saddle.
procedurally, I'll need a vote of the board to pull the money to finish the work.
Yep.
And then we'll have to contact the developer to see if he wants to come in and do the work, which I doubt it, but,
Sure,
and then we can go ahead and
understood.
finish the work.
Okay, so we need a motion to pull a bond.
Motion to pull the bond for Saddle Ridge Estates in the amount of $51,442.36
Do I have
to
a s-
complete construction of the roadway.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Review and approve, oh, excuse me, I think we could take a 4-minute break, I'll be right back.
4 minutes.
4 minutes?
You're on the clock.
Okay, excuse me. Sorry, Will. All right, we have
96 pounds.
a decision here, 2018-04 site plan modification application for 96 Pond Street. You all have a copy of the decision?
Yeah, so there was a little discussion earlier about just adding a condition about discussing some architectural options with design review board. So I'll add that.
And then I'm just gonna add the original, decision numbers in there too.
Yeah, okay.
Make a motion, if you're all set, Walter.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion to approve the special site plan modification decision 2018-04 for Pond Street LLC, as amended with the condition that the applicant sits with the design review board to talk about making revisions to the front elevation of the building.
Second.
We have a motion. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you, people. Let's see, the next is town planner updates.
All right, so I'll try to keep this relatively brief. At the May town meeting, we changed the bylaw so that we all have a revolving account in order to do the public hearing notices. Right. Until that vote was taken, we would have the application fee, and out of that application fee, we would pay for the public hearing notices. That vote affected the planning board as well as the zoning board, because there was similar circumstance where they paid the advertisement out of the application fee. So what we're proposing to do is to modify the planning board fee and the zoning board fee so their special permits are the same price, and then the public hearing notice will be paid separately. Now, in the case of the planning board, your special permits are $750. In the case of the Board of Appeals, they are $300. So,
That's a big difference.
yeah, so what proposed to do is split the difference, so to speak, raise the ZBA to 500 and lower the planning board to 500. It's
What
not
is
quite
it?
even split, but
Fair enough,
they'd be
okay.
consistent.
What is the 500 used for?
So
Would be,
so the-
whatever it is.
Yeah, so the 500 is really to offset costs that is administration of the special permits between staff time, review time, and we don't charge a fee. I would argue that we, commence with all the work that's involved with all the special permits, necessarily. I mean, but it's a modest fee. But that's what the fee is, to cover.
It covers staff time and
Correct.
paper and
Paper,
stuff.
staff, mailing,
Yeah, okay, all right, understood.
all that.
Questions from the board on the amount? 500 seem reasonable?
Is that okay? Now, the next step, we'll have to hold a hearing. The board will have to hold a public hearing, so we'll prepare the
Okay,
notices to send that out for review.
all right, and then it says update on complete streets.
Yeah, so just a quick update on that. As we talked about before, Complete Streets, we submitted application to put together a prioritization plan. Essentially, what that's going to do is going to take a look at the whole transportation network in town, which is between commuter rail, bus, roads, bikes, sidewalks, etc. And we'll be going through a planning process. We'll hold public meetings and prioritization. There's a lot of prioritization already of projects that we want to do, and we'll take that and put that into the plan, and then we don't need to rank them. And then once those are ranked and they go to the state for approval, then there's a pot of money that's available for us to apply for up to $400,000 per project to get some of the things funded. So, for example, a sidewalk that we may need to do. We may need to, in some cases, maybe we need additional signage that would help with pedestrians or near the schools or et cetera. And there's different levels of signage. But in that planning process, we'll go into those different things into detail. Some stuff will be a little bit more heavy lifting because we'll look at, challenging intersections and come up with some different approaches that we could handle dealing with the variations of issues that come up.
So who's gonna do this work?
So we'll be, Howard Stein Hudson is a consultant company that does this type of work.
Mhm.
They'll be working on behalf of the town, and they're technically under contract to Mass DOT. They're the ones that give the money, but they'll be working on our behalf.
All right,
So
so
that
it
work,
costs the town nothing to do?
no, it doesn't cost the town
Okay,
anything.
all right, yep.
We'll probably talk about September, just general timeframe.
Yep.
As things get closer, I'll let you know, and we'll be setting up meetings and so forth. That's just a kind of interim update for you.
Yep.
I did actually attend a workshop today on Complete Street, so it was there's a lot of good stuff out there for more rural towns and how to approach these things as for design. And so I won't get into I'm gonna kind of go over all the detail, but that's just an update of it, unless there's any questions, but.
Just a quick point of clarification, you identified that, given the way that things are moving now, you anticipate in September we'd have some kind of report or some kind of observation that we'd be able to review?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, so it'll be a planning process, there'll be public participation involved, there'll be data collection, there'll be mapping that's involved. Probably even walking to different locations just to do assessments on the ground, and that'll be then funneled down into a prioritization plan that we'll have to review. You'll take a look at it, make edits and changes. We submit it to the state. They make the review of it, and then it comes back to the town. One thing should have stepped back one moment is the Board of Selectmen will need to be developing a complete streets policy. So that'll be part of the process as well. And so essentially you want to do is you want to try to create equity as much as possible. And equity could be a variety of forms for pedestrians, motorists, bicyclists, and public transportation. So as we get into that, we'll get more into it. But
Just to follow up to Kevin's question, does the process start in September or kind of finishes in September?
oh no, starts. No, we're talking about starting. Yeah,
Starts in
we're probably talking about a 6 to 8 month
Yeah, okay.
time frame.
And how much is the total grant potentially for?
38,000.
That's for the planning
38,000.
That's the
just
plan, just the planning aspect.
Right, how about this money from the state to fix
So
some of these things?
it's up to 400,000.
Yeah.
That's available. Now, in some cases, a lot of towns that go through this prioritization plan, it may turn out that a project might be a larger scale, where we might do a larger design, and then we put it onto the transportation improvement plan. So that's some of the things that could come out of it as well.
This is
but-
essentially a master plan for the streets.
Yeah, and the town has already gone through a nice process of creating a pedestrian sidewalk plan. So what we'll be doing is taking all that work that has been done, and then we're going to incorporate that into the plan. So there's
And how are we tying this into the now 12-year-old master plan?
some of the same. Well, that pedestrian plan is referenced in that master plan, and some of the same principles that are in that master plan will carry forward into this plan. Some of the same ideas.
So this plan is going to reference the 12-year-old master plan.
It will in the aspects that are relevant. I mean, there's some of those things may be dated by age of the plan, but some of the objectives in that plan will still be relevant, though. I mean, it's the sidewalks, for example. The overall go to, create that sidewalk network into the center of town. I mean, it's kind of timeless, so to speak, in a way, because we haven't fully implemented it. But some stuff might be a little bit outdated. Not gonna necessarily incorporate outdated concepts per se, but we'll have we'll get into greater detail as we get going on the planning process when it gets going. And then the third item is the Norfolk Center grant that we applied for through Mass Housing, which was awarded to us. We'll probably start with the next few months. That's looking at the center of town as far as the zoning goes, what issues we need to identify to kind of fulfill the vision of the town and create that vibrant downtown with different businesses, housing, and so forth. Live, work, play concept. And so things are going to be looking at. We have a little bit of leg up with the stormwater, which thanks Walter found that was adopted. I need to kind of dig in a little bit, see where we need to make any changes or additions to that. But the idea is to then, as it's related to the stormwater for the center, We still need to get to the permitting level of doing that, because that's still on the to-do list to do, because it's technically and conceptually there, permitting-wise, it's not. So that needs to be addressed as well, which, on that note, which is not on the agenda necessarily, but there is, I did send out, I think, a letter a while ago where we applied for housing choice, whereby the town was designated a housing choice community based on the prior 5 years of housing that's been developed in town. And they just opened up this week a grant opportunity for us. And one of the plans is to go about the Norfolk Center drainage system for that grant, which, like I said, it's opened up. It opened up this week. The grants are due the end of July. The deadline, they're saying it's September for the awards, and then to try to get the projects done by next June of 2019.
Our eligibility for this grant was based on our housing development progress over the course of the last 5 years, is that right?
Yes. Yes. And that was both, and it's just an aggregate of all housing produced, whether it was affordable or market rate, so.
Are we going about building the steering committee?
Yeah, for the center, we need to get, I think I'm open to suggestions. I don't think we want to, we can talk about what that steering committee is and how large it is. I mean, I don't know. We do have the zoning committee, which I just saw some appointments yesterday it was done. So I don't know if we want to have it through that committee or a special committee, so.
Zoning advisory committee?
Yeah.
Correct.
Am I still on that?
You are.
Okay. I mean,
So we could talk about that, but I mean, we could use the zoning, that committee itself, since it's already in place, as opposed to create another committee, and then have certain people who would want to invite people to attend workshops on that. I think there was some questions on the budget. So the budget was essentially developed between myself and working with MAPC to come up with cost for those budgets. There is a little bit of a match that's required as part of that grant, which is just being covered by our existing budget we have within the department. I think, I don't know if there's any other questions you have, but
I just thought it was tight timeline as well, because we're in month 7.
yeah,
6-month
so
plan. I didn't know if there was anything being done in parallel. I guess that's what I was asking too.
it is kind of a tight timeline. So in one sense, MAPC I think is better recognizing these timelines relative to working with committees in small towns. It don't happen as quickly as probably some of the grant mass housing would like. So there is some discussion going on with mass housing that MAPC is having to try to level set a little bit how quickly things can go on this stuff. But we're going to try our best to stick to that schedule too. So we kind of want to be somewhat timely. I think that was and sums up updates for now.
But one thing that you didn't mention, but you did mention the town center stormwater drainage system. That is under review, as I understand it, by an engineering outfit to determine
Yes.
the capacity of the system and whether it lends
Correct.
itself to further ties in by other commercial properties here or in the center of town.
Based on what's already feeding into that system and what's committed to feed into that system in the future.
Right. Right.
And also based on, creating additional capacity as well, so.
Okay.
Yeah. Extra pipe here and there might.
Well, there's a special permit now, the Interceptor special permit from the year 2000 that the ZBA control with the stormwater from one side of town, Main Street, and then the other one, we did the Plasto's building, that
On
goes
the
down
Union
Union
Street.
Street,
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
And the Main Street one dumps into Town Pond that goes into the pond after that, so that's a conservation issue because you've got the dumping into an area there.
Yep.
So that size had to be redone, or has to be redone and sized to see if it can take any more.
Right.
The Union Street side, that we kept the Placido Building stormwater on site,
Yep.
because that dumps into a home on Union Street, and we found that that home is already pretty flooded, and the weir that was built there years ago is all covered with leaves and grass clippings and storage, so it really should have been cleaned out. So that's the second set of town, but I think that the only thing, there probably isn't anything left to connect on that side with this building is already done. I mean, there's a house beside it that is zoned commercial, but it's living
Yeah.
as a residential right
Yeah,
now.
yeah.
So the main one would be the interceptor permit down the center of town.
Yeah, this, I guess.
We started something on that, remember, like 8 years
Oh,
ago?
God, I
Didn't we create
know.
a drainage
I know,
district already?
Yes, that's,
We
Yes.
cre- this
I
district-
found that out.
7, 8 years ago, we created the
2010,
And
Fall
we-
Town
and we
Meeting,
went so-
Article
we-
8.
We went so far to say that a few of the pipes had to be resized and put
Yeah.
in to cover extra runoff, but it never went any
No,
further.
never did, never did.
Yeah, so kind of feel like we're on the 5-yard line here, and in the sense of have the engineer engaged, do the modeling,
Right.
do the permitting, and then get it approved through the boards, and then
And the
the
money.
and then the second part, which is that grant that I mentioned, is actually the money to do the improvements that are needed as part of the permitting that's involved. I think that's a good point. So we're talking about the Main Street and the north side interceptor. We're not talking about Union
Yeah,
Street.
there are, as I understand, there are 2 pipes that lead into town.
Correct, right. So we're talking about that. We're not talking about Union Street. But,
Okay.
and so, yes, that's the plan, to take care of obligations and then expand capacity.
Got it.
All right, thank you, Rich. I guess next is minutes, huh, sir?
Wrong sir.
Wrong sir, yes. Things change, don't they, quickly, huh? All right, and by the way, speaking of that type of change, let me belatedly welcome our new member.
Oh, thank you.
Say, welcome, Gary.
Thanks.
Thanks for coming and volunteering, and we appreciate your presence.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Secretary,
What am I supposed to do?
you're supposed to make a motion to accept the minutes of April 25th, and another motion, I guess independently, to accept the one on May 23rd.
All right, motion to approve the meeting minutes dated Wednesday, April 25th, 2018.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 No, I don't think I've read those, so I know what's in them. I have not read this new, because you just got. Yeah. So give me a minute to read it. Give us all a minute to read it.
You just voted on the April 25th minutes, right?
Yeah, we just did the April
I
25th.
have recused from that. I was absent,
It says that you were absent on there.
yeah, but I just recused from the vote.
Oh, from voting to accept. Gotcha.
Oh, do we have to add the note about Pond Street to this, just like we added it to the permit review? So this is where we actually talked about the Pond Street building and the design, the review with the design review board. We added that note to their permit, right?
Yeah, it doesn't necessarily have to be in the minutes.
Yeah, pass the signature pages.
We could, if what
Well,
language you,
I don't think you can.
Oh, no, you can't.
you can't,
That's tonight's minutes.
Yeah, it'll be in tonight's meeting. We'll have that noted, right?
Well, we,
Historical.
no,
I think you were
we-
saying that we talked about it at the other
Yeah,
meeting.
we didn't actually do it last meeting.
No.
We did it tonight. Right? You talked about it.
He's saying you could mention that we talked about it at that last
Oh, I was
meeting.
not mentioning that I was talking about it.
I think the reason we added it to our review was because we talked about it last week and it wasn't mentioned in the review. So if we talked about it last week, my point is, it should be in the minutes for last week. To be consistent with to be consistent with our addition of it to the permit review tonight. Last week, last month, whatever it was, last meeting. We likely talked about it at the last meeting.
What are these? Thanks.
Yep.
Like signing this one. Still mad about the parking lot.
Carrie, is your wife home cooking you a big dinner?
Normally I cook, that's why I don't know if she was here complaining.
Where's my dinner?
I heard her say I'm hungry,
It's
and
always Davio's.
that's true. Once in a while, it gets, we were going up to the
Ready,
gavel,
Mr.
but it's a
Byron?
little
Ready
late.
when you are.
Motion to approve, meeting minutes dated Wednesday, May 23rd, 2018.
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Do you
Do-
want to, vote
October
on
25th, 2017.
the open space permit for Mr. Petrosi? He's pretty much said that
You
he's not.
got some special
ever
ones.
gonna give
No,
you
that's
the
what, is
money,
that what?
So I don't know if you wanna hang them.
Those are the ones.
Oh, yeah.
We have to put on-
Yeah, I said to him that we would postpone that vote until next meeting, and I would,
Okay.
I'll put it up. It gives him another month to change his mind, and we think the chances of that happening are slim to none, and Slim may have left town, but
Is that still within the allotted timeframe from the
that's a
closing of
good
the
question.
public hearing?
That's a good question, sir.
It was 90 days.
Oh,
It's
okay,
90
so
days.
absolutely, yes, okay.
We have 90 days to vote
Yeah, if you close the public hearing.
for the special permit?
That's good.
Speaking
You
of closing,
sure?
the meeting.
Hang on.
Motion
he's
to
gonna-
adjourn.
Hang on, he's gonna,
We have a motion.
what, yes, hang on, he's gonna look up something here, hang on.
There's a lot of things we have 21.
Next meeting, the secretary says, next meeting here. Proposed is Wednesday, the 25th of July. How does that work for everyone? It's okay
good.
for me, I'm good.
I'm good as well.
I'm good.
Not a problem for me.
You're all right? Looks like it's the 25th, okay.
Planning board meeting.
You don't have to show me, as long as it's,
Betsy, are you gonna send out, Google Calendar invites moving forward? Okay, let's wait for that then. Thank you for doing that, it's really
it's
helpful.
not in there.
Sorry about the confusion.
You weren't supposed to be here, were you?
Well,
Two different email accounts.
different emails, we're trying to move forward using his, Norfolk email.
Page 309. Oh, you got it?
Yeah.
Okay. On A. See time limits?
Not doing a very good job with your hydration there.
I just filled it, I refilled it. So, settle down.
Contentious.
So, yes.
Okay, wait a second.
Yep. Go ahead, wait a minute.
Oh, I have another motion.
Master law requires the decision of the special permit granting authority to be made within 90 days following the date of the public hearing. The first public hearing date was when?
No, not the first public.
Well, it didn't, it says the date of the public hearing. The
Public
statute
hearing.
also requires final action to be taken within the same period.
Yeah, well, we just closed the public hearing, so the public hearing,
But we didn't vote, we didn't take action.
no, but we have 90 days from tonight.
Well, this is sort of saying we have 90 days from we have the first public
It
hearing.
didn't say the first, it says the public hearing.
The public hearing.
Which-
It doesn't say the close of the public hearing.
Well, it's the public hearing extended over several months and closed tonight.
I understand.
So I read that as we have 90 days from today.
I'm just wondering why it says within 90 days following the date of the public hearing and also final action within the same period.
Okay.
Maybe the presumption is the public hearing won't be extended for 5 months.
Well, I'm just wondering if that means the first public hearing date, that within 90 days you have to have it finalized and voted on. I don't know.
I mean, how many public hearings have we had that have gone past 90 days?
Well, his, I think.
All of them, right?
Virtually.
Yeah.
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 So for us to say,
You have 65 days to hold
This
the
one here
first
went on
hearing,
like 6 months.
and then you know, lot of discussion on it, but it is 90 days from the close of the public hearing.
well, we elapsed 90 days about 4 months ago.
Yes.
So another meeting probably
Yeah,
isn't
I
gonna put
know.
us in a
Well,
different
the only,
position.
the only question to bring, if it is 90 days, then it becomes automatically approved. Anytime you're not within the time constraints, the permit and process becomes approved automatically. He would know that.
For everything.
Well, I'll tell you what, next time you talk to town council, will you get a
His
clarification?
question's probably right, it just, it didn't say from the opening of the public hearing, it just said
I know.
the public hearing.
And one can interpret that in a variety of ways.
And the public hearing is a time period.
Yeah.
That's another bylaw change. Town meeting, here we come.
All right, there was a motion on the floor to adjourn. Did I hear that?
Second.
There was a second as well. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned. Thank you.
I would also like the dress code memo before the next meeting.